Have you ever had a friend share something with you that was so profound it left you speechless? You had no idea what to say. Words, any words that you might conjure up, seem too shallow for the moment. Whether it is euphoric or heart-wrenching, whether it causes one to want to hug the other person and dance with joy or fall on your face in sorrow, you just simply, words fall shallow for how you're feeling. As I prayed with this gospel in preparation for this homily, this verse stood out to me. Jesus took Peter, James, and John, and he began to be distressed and agitated. Jesus became distressed and agitated, and he said, "I am deeply grieved, even to death." Distressed, agitated, grieved. Not normal words or images or feelings that we would ascribe to Jesus, this man who brings peace, this man who brings healing. And then the gospel continues, they did not know what to say to him. Have you ever not known what to say to a friend in need? Through Lent, Father James and I have been preaching on this series we've named Renewing Our Covenant, through which we've looked at the difference between a covenant and a contract. And we've come to agree that a covenant, in the biblical sense, says, I am yours and you are mine. A contract says, this is yours and this is mine. So this week, God, through God's covenant that He has made with us, is saying, I am yours and you are mine. This is expressed through God's radical gift of self, God's very self, God's total self-giving through Christ for you and for many, as you are about to hear from the altar for the forgiveness of sins. For this past 2 weeks in the series, we focused specifically on the Davidic covenant, this covenant that God made through King David, through whom God promised to establish an eternal kingdom through David. Now, the church, of course, professes this Davidic kingdom, this eternal kingdom, is fulfilled through Jesus Christ, the new covenant of God's very own body and blood. He who ushered in, just picture this, he who ushered in this new covenant took Peter and James and John and began to be distressed and agitated. I am deeply grieved, even to death. They did not know what to say to him. What do you say to him? What do you say to him? Jesus, the eternal King, has just exposed his total vulnerability to us by expressing how he is feeling about this calling on his life. Vulnerability from a king, from an eternal king, from God. Really? Really? This kingdom ushered in by Christ, this vulnerability, if measured against the arrogance of any worldly standard, was an abject failure. I mean, let's be honest. A ragtag group of men and women of low station in society followed a penniless field preacher from Galilee to usher in this new kingdom. They arrived in Jerusalem to conquer the capital. They were quickly dispersed, and its leader was beaten up by its authorities and crucified. Done. That's pretty much the definition of a failure right there. But for those with eyes to see, of course, God did not fail on the cross. We have failed to keep our covenant with God. All of humanity has, time and time and time again. But through this lens of worldly failure, God ushers in the divine victory of love. This is the free gift of grace, divine love won for us on the cross. This Holy Week, I invite you to participate in the liturgies of the Church, either by attending in person if you're able, or online. These liturgies, as we journey with this eternal King, this vulnerable King, this humble King, this triumphant King. As St. Paul wrote to the Philippians, though he was in the form of God, did not regard equality with God as something to be exploited, but emptied himself. What do you have to say to him? Holy Week is a time to engage in the intimacy of this conversation, you and God. What do you have to say to him? What will you say to him before you go to bed tonight? What will you say to him on Holy Thursday, on Good Friday, on Easter? What will you say to him?